Most people talk about leadership like it's theory. I've lived it in the mud, the chaos, and the moments nobody writes about. This show is the truth, raw, unfiltered, and built for leaders who actually give a damn. If you're ready to grow, ready to own your own story, and ready to lead from the front, you're in the right place. Speak up, show up, lead. Let's get into it.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Speak Up, Show Up, Lead Leadership Live Edition with Chris Pienkowski, my co-host here. How you doing today, Chris?
Doing great, JJ. How are you?
Man, I'm really doing all right. I had some technical difficulties with the internet this morning. We had some storms overnight, and so I wasn't exactly sure what was going on, but we fixed it, and we're here.
Here we are.
So today we're talking about one where we've done it before, but we're going to be focusing on execution, and we're going to be talking about discipline over motivation, but really it's making sure that we really dial in on how we can relate that back to reinvention, because that's what we just got done talking about. So let's start it off. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so this is a new series, and I'm really excited to kick it off because it's a natural progression from the reinvention topic. So we start off the year with reinventing yourself with intentionality to be the leader that you want to be in 2026. Now we're moving into the action piece, right? And that's what I love is like, all right, now you've got this picture of where you want to be. Now, how do you take action? How do you make it happen? And I'm really looking forward to this next 4 episodes where we get to, share some thoughts and real life experiences of how you turn what you want to be into the action that's going to help you get there.
Yep. I like it too. Discipline over motivation. This is actually something that I've studied a little bit ever since the first time I really heard. The first time I really heard about it was Jocko, who mentioned it. And, when I heard that, and then you and I talked about it privately, it sparked my interest because, your motivation is emotional. Mm-hmm. Discipline is just doing what you got to do, regardless of whether you want to do it or not. And I relate a lot to that because I'll just relate it back to my military service. How many times did I get up in the morning and not want to do a doggone thing? Often. And it's that way now too. I mean, how often do we wake up and maybe we had a little argument with the wife, or maybe the kids said something crazy to us before they went out the door to school, and we just don't really want to do the stuff that we know we got to do. But at the end of the day, you can't get emotional about it, which is where that motivation lies. You just got to do what you got to do, whether you want to do it or not. When it comes to our reinvention, if we have our goals, well, guess what? You're not going to get to that end goal if you don't execute.
No, you're absolutely right. Today was a great example. Like, it's been in the low 40s and raining here all week long. It's just been gray and miserable. And I don't know, at some point in the middle of the night while I was asleep, one of my dogs just like curled up in front of me, and we were snuggling this morning, and I didn't want to get out of bed.
Those are the best times, man. Especially, I have this one dog. We have 2 dogs over here, but one of them, she typically just does not snuggle. And so when she does, it's like, man, I don't want to get up and do anything else right now. This is great. Okay. But no, I agree. When you have all these opposing factors, likely, especially when it comes to exercise, if you're trying to lose weight and that's your reinvention, I mean, it's easy to slough that off. Mm-hmm. And honestly, it's the same way. If you have a small thing that you got to do at work and you don't really want to do it, it's easy to slough it off. And when you're a solopreneur and you're trying to get this new business going, there are a lot of things that you have to do that you don't necessarily want to do. And when you don't have anybody telling you whether you have to or don't have to, it's easy to just slough those things off. So if you let that emotional part of your brain take over, it's not going to happen. And so you got to push through that, and that's where the discipline comes in, because it's doing the things that you may not want to do because you know they have to be done.
That's right. And so to an extent, we do rely on the emotional side of our brain to kick the discipline side off, right?
Yeah.
You have to be conscious enough to say to yourself, get off the couch and move. Right? Like, just take action. You have to engage, your brain has to engage your legs to get up and start moving.
Yep.
And then the momentum can take over. Like, all right, once I'm up and I'm warmed up and I'm getting ready to get into my workout or whatever it is, I'm sitting in front of my computer and I'm starting to, get work done. All right, now I'm in a groove. Now I can rock and roll. But it's that initial stage of the mental switch saying, get off your butt, go start something, go do something, go move. You know what you need to do. What are you avoiding?
Yeah. And, let's relate that back to what we've been talking about for this whole year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is the execution stage of that reinvention. You've gotten to this point because you've obviously wanted to make a change, whether it's you're getting in shape or you're really pushing to get that new job or you're starting that business, whatever the case may be. There are going to be times now and in the future where, while you're trying to wait for that to start kicking in, I mean, I was on a call the other day with a group of people. We were networking and we were sharing our wins. And she said her big win was, I've been working out for months and I'm finally starting to see the progress. Well, so this is crucial to understand that's still going to happen for you, but you gotta push through that. And what do you rely on when the discipline is becoming less and less and less, the motivation is becoming less and less and less because it's just not working? Well, now you go back to, why did I start this in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
And there was obviously a reason you wanted to do that thing that you're in the process of doing. And think about that. That obviously kicked you into motion then. Let it kick you into motion now, because that's when that emotional side can be used to kick you back into gear. That's when you can boost that motivation back up by remembering why you did it in the first place. And then I'll tell you what, once you really get that going and you get yourself excited again, that action's actually going to be a little bit easier.
It is. And sometimes we need that, no matter how disciplined the person is. If you don't keep your why kind of front and center and add to it, like, let's take lifting weights, for example, or getting in shape. When you get to a certain point and it's like, I can knock out those 12 reps and it's not a big deal. That tells you that it's time to put more weight on the plate, but you've got to be thinking about your why. Like, well, why would I want to put more weight on the plate? Right? Why do I want to do this? So whatever it is, you're stuck. Maybe you're writing a book, you're doing something professionally that, there's an end goal to, but it's feeling repetitive. That's the other thing too, that people, if it starts to feel too repetitive, that's when you hear a lot of people just start to like find other things, or they allow themselves to get what I call a mental mistress. Where it's like, oh, you know what? No, I'm kind of interested in this thing over here. I haven't completed this. I understand that, but I'm kind of getting bored with it. Now I'm interested over here. You also have to break that cycle of boredom and understand why you need to get past that. Like, that's a test of your will to say, okay, this is going to take me another couple of weeks and it's going to be boring, but the end result is there. Like, I see the light at the end of the tunnel, and this is why I'm doing it. This is my purpose, and I need to push through. So keeping that why in mind, in my experience, is very important.
It is very important. And now those mundane tasks, just keep in mind that there's another side to that. And this goes away from the discipline of the motivation a little bit, but we'll get back into it. Don't worry. But let me make another point here is that, if you're doing the same thing over and over and over again and it's not working out for you, don't just keep on doing that. It's not going to serve you. Obviously there's going to be some things that are going to be repetitive that you have to do. If you want attention, you're going to have to do that outreach on social media that day, or that you're going to have to maybe do that knowledge post 2 or 3 times a week, or you're going to have to, have some difficult conversations with people to tell them more about you, because a lot of people, when they're in the high performers, don't necessarily like to talk about themselves. They like to, get the work done and help other people. So, those are things you're going to have to do. But if your work is not getting you anywhere, if you're just stuck, talk to somebody else who has been through this same thing and see how they can help you get to that next step. Analyze what you're doing, that AAR that we talked about before. Look at everything that you've been doing. What has been, getting you some more conversations. What has kept things stale? What can you sustain? What can you improve? What can you completely drop off? Just look at all those things and just, do that analysis once in a while, because if you're not getting anywhere, there's something to be said about that too. And that can also, cause you to really not want to do the thing that you're already doing. And it will actually cause people to revert back to what they were doing, which may have been nothing at all, or it could have been that job that they hated. Or like Chris said, it could be, that having that spiderweb effect where you're just trying different things that are completely unrelated and you're focusing on everything, which means you're not focusing on anything at all.
Exactly. So JJ, how do we turn that discipline into, or that motivation into discipline? In theory, I'm a car guy, so I like to use car analogies. And I always think about motivation is like the torque, right? The torque is what gets the car going from the red light or off the line when you're drag racing. But the discipline is the horsepower, and the horsepower is what keeps you going down the road. It's what gets you down the racetrack to win the race.
Yeah.
So how do we make that transition from torque to horsepower so that we're not stalled out and we're running down the road?
Really, it's just making those small actions every day. If you get to the point where you have the motivation, you're pumped up, you're ready to get these things done, that we got to rely back on the planning steps, right? We have all these things lined up that we plan during that planning stage that we talked about a couple months ago. And if some of these things just seem daunting, or some of these things may be impossible because you haven't done some other things, just find something that is I don't like to say the word easy, but sometimes you have to rely on easy to get you to the point where you're moving. If you're not in motion, you're not doing anything. So look at all those things that you lined up for yourself. And even if it's not the next one that you thought you should take, look and see what is the most actionable thing that you can do right now, and go do it.
Yep. We've talked before about, ownership, standards, critical actions. The ownership obviously starts with you, right?
Yep.
You take the responsibility for taking action to go do something. And then you've got your standards of, this is what I will allow, this is what I will not allow. And those are, to an extent, self-imposed, right?
Yep.
We set our own standards. And some standards may be required of us from outside forces, right? Work, family, whatever. But it's up to us to take what's expected of us and maybe take it to the next level, right? That's the winning mindset, is like, all right, if the standard is here, I need to be here.
Yeah.
And then it's the critical action. Keyword critical, because just busy action doesn't necessarily produce results. It could produce that doing the same thing over and over again that we just talked about. Whereas the critical actions are the ones that actually move the needle closer to your end result. It's very methodical. You can't just go through it without planning it, right? But you got to put that plan in place and say, all right, there are milestones that I need to reach. There are steps between each milestone that need to happen. You need some kind of way of tracking it if it's a real significant challenge or goal that you're facing. So I think it would probably be good to talk about that. How do we start to nail those things down?
Well, sometimes when we have that plan, we can talk about the tracking here in a second, but let's you brought up something that sparked a thought that we have to go over first. Sometimes that plan you had before, you'll notice that the next steps that you have in that plan may or may not even serve you. And that could be, that could be a reason why the actions you've been taking have been becoming stale. And so sometimes you have to look at that entire plan. Well, I've done A, B, C, and D in the way that I thought it needed to be done because I thought it would accomplish this. But I noticed that A, B, and C actually accomplished this. D took me down a different route, and I'm kind of veering off course. So, that could actually cause that motivation, even as high as it is, to cause your discipline to start lacking. Because I don't care how motivated you are, there are times where you're like, what are these actions doing? Mm-hmm. And so sometimes you got to do that analysis again, just not over everything. Hey, what about these actions have not been working? Because I have this, and this to do, and it lines up with what I did, but it may not line up now. And I got to figure this out. We'll do it.
Yeah.
Start that process, not completely over again, but just what is that next thing that's going to move the needle? Because you don't want to jump off on that spider web. You do want to move that needle, and in order to track it, you're not going to really be able to track your progress towards this thing if you've been moving towards this thing without even realizing it, that was even going to happen in the first place. So I think that's one point that you just brought up, because sometimes we are going towards our goal, and we have these unexpected things, which, by the way, happen every single time you execute a plan. You have to be able to analyze things kind of on the fly to figure out if those things are working or not. But you do have to track them. I mean, whether it's keeping yourself accountable with lists and being able to write down, keep notes on everything that you're doing to see how they're working. Some people, that's an old school way of doing it. Some people still track that way. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. I mean, that's a really, really good way, but make sure those notes are good so that you're figuring it's like I do AAR style notes on almost everything that I do. I think that's good. That's a good way of tracking things. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, people like to do the formal GAN things and all that stuff. I mean, you could use project management style tracking mechanisms to get yourself to where you're going. But if it doesn't help you understand what step you're at and what has worked on that step, and if that next step that you were going to take is actually the right next step, then you need to make sure that it does.
Yeah. And you're right. It's critical along the way to be evaluating. Am I taking the right steps? Where do I need to iterate? And we were just having this conversation at work last week. When you're early on in something, if you're 10 degrees off, but you don't take the time to adjust and figure out, you just assume that you're on the right course and you're 10 degrees off. If you're flying from New York to London, but you're 10 degrees off, you actually end up landing somewhere like the south of France.
Yep.
So you're not going to hit your target And so it does become really critical. And that's where, keeping track of your steps and doing some reflection along the way is what helps you to stay on course for the goals that you're trying to achieve.
Yeah. Well, I am curious though. What are some methods that you have used in the past to track your execution, Chris?
So I'm actually a big fan of like Microsoft Project.
Oh,
I
okay.
like to see the visual of my Gantt stages. I'm a big believer in the reverse engineering process. If I want to be here now, let's figure out how to build to that. What are my milestones? That's the other thing, is that I'm a big fan of milestones. The milestones are the I don't know, they're the points along the way that help you to determine, am I still chasing that North Star or am I off? I think I don't want to call it analytical, but I'm very methodical that way. And maybe it's from my background in construction. It's like, okay, that's what the house needs to look like.
Yeah.
But before the house can look that way, it needs to be framed. It needs to be, weather tight on the outside. It needs a roof, like critical steps. Those are the things that I'm looking at when I'm planning out what's a challenge that I'm trying to overcome. What are the critical milestones? And then within each of those, now I'm looking at my steps. So yeah, I've been using some type of Gantt chart for a very long time in whatever I'm working on.
Yeah, I was using a Gantt chart before I even knew that that's what it was called. It was very similar to the same thing, but I like to reverse engineer it as well. We used to make a road to war and plan thing out very methodically in the military as well, and it's because I use logistics operation, transportation planning, and so before I can order that train or order that plane or order that ship, I know that I have to make sure we have a list of the equipment, which means we have to talk to the organization about the operation that's going to be happening. And then we need to figure out what needs to happen from then all the way to the end and fit all those little things in there, which sometimes is different for every organization, because if they're infantry, the stuff is going to be different. I mean, you're still going to have to train drivers. You're still going to have to do all the things to make sure you can load the ship. But all the things are different. But so, that reverse engineering process and figuring out the milestones, the dates to get you there. I know we're stepping back into what we were talking about earlier in the year, but I think that if we're gonna stop and reanalyze our plan a little bit, it's good to understand how we get to that end state. And so, if you've lost track of that, we're bringing it up again because this is something critical to understand, that even as you're going through that, you're going to hit choke points, and you can rely on that plan you already have or re-engineer a new one. And if you don't look at that as an option, you're going to be shooting yourself in the foot, because plans change. I mean, Murphy's Law will come in every single time you're executing and tell you that your plans are interesting, or the people that you have involved in that plan may not do things the way that you thought they would do, or any sort of a thing could pop up, or if you were relying on government agencies to get paperwork done in a certain amount of time, or whatever the case may be, because that never happens. If you think that a 30-day thing takes 30 days, sometimes it takes 45 or 60. You just never know. So I mean, just know that give yourself some grace, do what you got to do, but don't stop doing the little actions every day that have got you there, because they will still get you to the end state, but don't stop moving.
I thought you were going to say, don't stop believing.
You want me to start singing here, Chris?
It's too early.
You definitely don't want to hear that anyway. That'll definitely wake people up. But so motivation, discipline. Discipline, it's built off of many things, and oftentimes the discipline to execute it's not always inherent. That it actually requires training. If so, when you talked about exercise, I'll talk about exercise because that's a good one. Methodically doing your exercise every day doesn't just get you there. It will over time, but it's not going to happen tomorrow. You're not going to do a workout today and just be fit tomorrow. That's not going to happen. You have to push yourself, which is the discipline part of it, to make sure you're doing that thing. And as I said, this gal that I talked to the other day, she said she had been at it for months before she saw any results. Well, who knows? I don't know what your goals are, the people that are listening to this call, but just know that you might have success in certain things overnight, but likely you're going to have to work at these things for a long time before you get to your end state. If you're looking for that next level job that's higher paying, well, you might get that first interview in 2 or 3 weeks. You might get another one in 2 or 3 months. And then you might land that job in 6. That shit, the higher level job you go, unless they're looking to fill that spot now, that's just how they go, because they want to make sure they're screening candidates the right way. When it comes to working out, gosh, it depends on how much weight you have. I mean, I have a little bit more than I did when I was in the military. In the military, I could see those results within a couple of weeks. But now that I'm older and I have more weight in certain spots, that doesn't seem to want to go away, I have to work at that for a little while before I start seeing even just a little bit of progress.
Yeah.
And so can that diminish your motivation? Absolutely. But you have to put the reps in every single day. Well, I mean, I would say however many days you choose of the week, because you have to have your rest cycle, but you have to put your reps in when you say you're going to put your reps in, because when you stop, I don't give a doggone how great your why is to get in shape. That motivation can drop right the heck off. Mm-hmm. And then it's going to be that much harder to get started again. And it doesn't really matter what your goal is. It can be the same way. If you stop doing the things that you have to do every day, that you have planned out, that you have set up, even though you're not seeing the results necessarily, if you stop doing those things, it's going to be harder to start them back up again too.
Yeah. So what I heard there is consistency, frequency, and knowing when you might feel like you're burning out, and it's okay to take a rest.
Yep.
But you have to be very conscious of, this is a rest period. Now I need to get right back on the highway. But I also like to have some kind of visual reminder of why I'm doing things. People do the vision boards and things like that, but if I've got something, maybe it's a image of my phone or something on my my wallpaper on my computer, those kind of things are like, all right, I can see my why here. And for the times that you're not feeling motivated, that could help. So you've got to apply tools to help you to get to where you want to be. And realize that no one's perfect. Everyone has those moments of I just want to snuggle with my dog for another 30 minutes, whatever. But yeah, it's just everything's a balance, man, and you just have to be conscious enough to just take the step, just move and get things kicked off.
Yep. And I guess my closing comment on that would be, just like Chris said, give yourself a little bit of grace, but keep on doing those things regardless. And just remember, motivation, discipline, one is emotional, one is logical, doing what you need to do because it has to be done. The emotional side, if you're always waiting for yourself to be ready to do something, you're never going to do it. So you can't rely on your emotions to push you, you have to rely on your logic, unfortunately, and your logic will say, you know what, I don't want to, but I have to. So that's really the difference between motivation and discipline. Sometimes motivation can win on a day-to-day basis. If you're having a lot of wins, you're going to be motivated. You're going to be pumped up. You're going to be ready. But if you're not, if you don't have a lot of wins all the time and you feel like things are getting mundane and stagnant and that you're not really getting anywhere, well, then you're going to have to rely on logic. But I got to do it anyway. So why am I stopping? I just got to keep going and doing what I got to do.
That's right. And, as a Philadelphian, I can get motivated by Rocky sometimes. So sometimes you got to watch that clip of Rocky when he's standing in the street and he's telling his kid, it's not how hard you get hit, but it's how hard you get hit and how many times you get back up. And sometimes that just lights a fire under your ass.
I'm still waiting for that video of you running up to those stairs and, doing that up on. No, but I agree. So I think this was a great call. If you have any questions about this, please leave them in the comments below because we want to hear your feedback. And by the way, if you're having a hard time at this point in your life, we also want to know about that because if you feel like you're moving toward things, but it's just not working out in your favor, I think it's important to know that having an accountability partner or just a quick conversation about what you're doing and a different perspective could actually change the trajectory of what you have going on. So just keep that in mind. You don't have to do it alone. There are always, whether it's a friend, a mentor, if you hire a coach, it doesn't really matter what you do, but sometimes that extra perspective can get you the rest of the way and maybe build up a little bit of that motivation that we were talking about to get you moving. So you don't have to always rely on logic because that's how burnout happens, actually.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, do you have anything else before we close it out today, Chris?
No, I think my Rocky reflection was my closeout.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go. And so I didn't do it at the beginning of the call, but I'll do it now. I was distracted by the fact that my internet wasn't working. But don't forget to go to Amazon.com. Buy the book. It's a leadership lessons that I have from before, during, and after service. Speak Up, Show Up, Lead on Amazon.com. I wrote this one. Check it out. I definitely want you to. And whether you watch it now or later, don't forget to like, subscribe, do all the things. Make sure you click all those buttons wherever you're at, so you get the notification that the next one's going to be coming up.
Yes.
And we'll see you all next time.
Have an awesome day. Go get some work done.
Go get some work done.